And moving right along to the next section, we want to just spend a bit of time talking about your website. And in the midst of all this other stuff, definitely in terms of on-page SEO, it's important not to forget your website. Sometimes that is the case. And with that in mind, try and start from a solid base. You ideally want a website that's mobile friendly. Since about 2015, this has been a ranking factor in terms of Google, and more recently, they've actually separated their search index into mobile and desktop. So that's that all that stuff's happening. It wants to and there's a few different ways you can do that. It can either be mobile responsive, which is probably the most common. You can have a dedicated mobile site which either loads by device or it's a separate domain. There are some sort of caveats that go along with that, and you need to take care to make sure that that's set up properly. But there are a few options for that, and typically they'll have simplified navigation, larger buttons for fingers tapping, which is less accurate than clicks, and most importantly, it will load really fast. Ideally, 2 to 3 seconds. There's one of the next slides goes into some more detail around that, but that's kind of the best sort of benchmark to aim for. There's a few websites that you can run this through. There's Pingdom Speed Test. There's GT Metrics. Testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com is quite a simple, user-friendly version of this sort of test. It does give you a nice summary at the end as well, which shows you what things you need to fix, as well as some suggestions in general. So check that out. Run your site through that and see how you go. It's also important to coming back to that point about user experience. It's important to think about really think about each page. Do they need to be there? And if not, get rid of it. About pages, questionable. Do you actually need them? Often not. What is the intent of someone who's possibly browsing that page? Does that page have enough value in its own right to exist? All those, and is it sort of unique and valuable and not duplicated with other sections of your site? All that stuff is just real basic things you need to tick off before you sort of move forward. Consider an SSL certificate, or which basically gives you a HTTPS extension to your site. That is the way things are heading. I mean, the various browsers like Chrome and Firefox are sort of upgrading the way they sort of notify users of sites that are non-SSL or non-secure. Google hasn't officially at this stage announced it as a ranking factor, but there's feeling in the industry that may change some point in the future. So, and you can get fairly cheap or inexpensive SSL certificates these days from a number of providers. One of the earlier points was about signing up for Google Search Console. One of the reasons for that is that you can get in there and easily see errors to do with your site. Things like pages that aren't being indexed, any sort of manual penalties. You can see other details around the site. Make sure you've submitted a XML sitemap through Search Console as well. But basically going in there and just trying to tidy that up and make sure there's no major issues with Google indexing your site. Seen that happen before, where a developer has, say, left a bit of code on the page, like a no index code or something like that, or a weird redirect, and basically the whole website hasn't been indexed in Google because of that, or certain pages. So this might seem basic, but don't skip past it. It can really be damaging. Here's the point I spoke of a minute ago about page load. So this is a fairly recent report from Google 2017 talking about an industry breakdown of bounce rate and how it increases by the load time of the site. It does vary from one industry to the next, but this is just an overall view, and you can see that 1 to 3 seconds is kind of that sweet spot. As we move up, as we get towards 5, 6, even 10 seconds, you can see how sharply that increases. So it kind of triples almost 4 times, or sort of 4 times that amount in that space of time. So every second really can count, especially on a site that's getting a lot of traffic. That can make a huge difference. And we talked about bounce rate earlier, so I'm not gonna go into that again. And that's the end of this section.